right, 3, 2, 1, and we are back with episode 3, guys. How you doing?
Good.
How are you?
How you guys been?
Great.
Busy.
Anything interesting?
We did the Samsung event.
Yeah,
days
we
ago,
all
yeah.
went to the Samsung Global Night Squad event.
Can I just sum it up in one word?
Yeah.
Actually, 2 words.
Okay.
Fucking freezing.
Dude, it was cold.
Yeah,
I couldn't
it was cold.
I could not feel my hands. I was like shaking like this.
Yeah,
man.
I was
Actually,
trying to
that was really good tea. When they gave us the tea, it was
Oh,
really
yeah.
nice.
Did you have the tea, Tommy?
No, I skipped it.
Oh, you missed out.
So
Was it
good.
actually good?
It was actually really nice.
Like Chinese tea?
Yeah, sweet tea.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was actually
Sweet tea.
All right.
All right, let's get up back on track. What is the topic for today, guys? Or tonight, sorry.
Tonight we are talking
Wherever
about...
you guys listening.
We're talking about gear and whether it matters or not in photography.
Gear doesn't really matter that much. All right, let's just finish the
We're
podcast.
done.
there.
We're
Oh,
done.
I thought you just said you had so much to talk about. on this
No.
topic.
Gear, depending on the situation where you want to be with
Your
photography,
photography.
videos, whatever. Like any other crafts, to some degree, yes.
Yeah.
All right, let's elaborate. What are your thoughts, guys?
I think it matters, right? Because if you're trying to deliver like a certain quality to a client, obviously there are certain products that can deliver that and certain products that can't.
Yeah.
Like let's say you're trying to reach like a certain level of bokeh in your shot, right? Or let's say like you need a certain quality of glass, or even if you're doing videography and you need like a certain like aspect ratio or quality. I don't even know, but like all of that stuff, like it matters, and that's all down to the technicalities and the specs of all your products. I get that maybe if you're a beginner and if you're learning like composition and lighting, maybe that kind of stuff you can have the argument that gear doesn't really matter. But I think if you're trying to deliver a high or if you're trying to deliver an end product and you know the standard that you need to meet, then that standard is predicated on the gear that you have, as well as like your own ability to use that gear.
Alright.
Yeah. But as a beginner, gear shouldn't, because like you just started out and you need to learn.
Yeah.
And we're all still learning as well.
Always.
It definitely helps to have the best gear, but if you don't know how to use it, what's the point of having the gear? You're like, probably, sure, yes, you're more likely to take, nice, cleaner shots, but that's more of the technology behind it than your actual skill.
Yeah.
I think the skill really comes behind your ideas and what you know about light as it is.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really understand that well, plus the expensive gear, then you can make something even better, a lot better.
We get you. Yeah.
But as a beginner, I think with every camera, if the camera is not as good as more like a professional DSLR or some sort, you really have to know lighting in order to achieve a decent shot on a cheaper budget type camera.
Yeah.
Because I think like in the best lighting situation, every camera is almost on par. The difference is the gap is very small, but then when it becomes more like in tougher situations where there's a big difference, a contrast between the highlights and the shadows, then obviously the more expensive cameras are likely to perform better because of the sensor technology behind it, and all that stuff. But if you know how to light, that gap is a lot smaller.
Yeah.
And not only that, I think if we're taking the argument of gear doesn't matter, I think in the case where it depends on what concept you're going for as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of, let's say, more artistic photographers, if their argument would be like they have a certain idea in mind, and to achieve that, they might not necessarily need the best, like top-notch gear. Like what they need is that idea that really, I guess, that is the more important aspect of the production than the actual production itself.
Yeah.
Because like I grew up watching a lot of Digital Rev in my high school days. Do you guys know what it is? Kai Wong.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to Kai
Yeah,
Wong.
he's not there anymore though. But
Yeah, no, he's not there, but he's got his own stuff. Locke's
Yeah.
got his own stuff as well. But they had this series called Cheap Camera Pro Photographer.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah. So and you'd be like, damn, they'd be getting like these Lego cameras and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But like Philip Bloom, but he's a videographer. He does videography. He took all these videos off a Barbie camera and made this whack ass story. But it was interesting, and it just goes to show, like, you know, it's not all about the gear; it's the concept behind it.
Exactly.
Like you said, Tom.
Exactly.
It's always about the story you tell as well.
And there's a lot of things that go viral or like people really seem to enjoy, and they may not be the most aesthetically pleasing, but they have a really good concept behind it. And you know, at the end of the day, that's what, you know, is going to sell your product or whatever you're trying to, you know, release. So yeah.
I want to try that, like using a really shitty camera.
Like a disposable camera.
That's probably the worst I've been at, but I feel like there are way worse things.
Okay. Yeah.
Like the Lego cameras, the Barbie cameras, the I don't know, all the toy ones.
Oh, the Game Boy Color camera.
There's a camera on the Game Boy
As in,
Color?
like, it's an extension, and you like plug it in, and like has a pixel.
Oh shit!
Wait, Game Boy?
Game Boy Color camera. So like, you have to buy it, and you adapt it onto the Game Boy Color.
Did Nintendo make an extension for that?
Yeah, you plug it in, and it just like it like has like a pixelated photo.
Oh man, I thought the first camera on the Nintendo Game Boys was the damn, what was that? Nintendo DS. Yeah, I thought that was
the first inbuilt camera. Yeah.
Even then, that camera's appalling.
Yeah.
Is it actually?
Yeah, it really is.
It's on par with like your old school Nokias back in the day, like back in like early high school.
Yeah.
Whichever one had the camera.
I don't know, had like Motorola Razr.
I used a Razr.
Flip phone, that was classic, and everyone had the Nokia flip phone, the slide.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I feel like because you also use that phone, right?
Which one? The Razr?
Did you use Razr?
I used the Razr. I thought that
Did
was
you
the
take a lot of photos?
beast.
Did you take a lot of photos on it?
I took a lot of random like, I don't know, bro. Like today, obviously, I think of photography differently, but back then, even till this day, it's like I just like to take photos of funny things.
Yeah, me
like,
too.
Oh, yeah.
Just document like, oh, I did that, or like,
Yeah.
oh, look at his face, something like that. You know?
Yeah, because when I used the Razr, I used the camera a lot,
Yeah.
and I was just taking photos of like really random,
Yeah.
like food or like people or like the sky or something like that.
But back then, like, you know, having a camera on your phone, it was still relatively new.
Because Instagram wasn't back then, so like you couldn't really share your photos, so like nobody was really judging you.
Yeah.
So you just took photos like willy nilly.
Yeah.
I think today, like when we take photos or whatever, you know, in the back of our minds, it's always like,
How many people are gonna like this?
yeah, how many people are like, is this actually going to look alright on Instagram? Like, even though we didn't take this photo for the intended purpose to be on social media, I think subconsciously we've trained ourselves to think that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit disturbing
agree.
in some ways, right?
I mean, I think if you're talking about photography in a traditional sense, I can see why people would think it's weird to take a photo for a social platform. But the way I see it, the social platform is it's just another channel for marketing, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing as your website. It's the same thing as the photo itself, like, because that photo it's gonna go somewhere.
Yeah.
If you're gonna show someone, and social media just happens to be one of the places.
Yeah.
Even if it means like it's, I don't know, like devalued or it's got a short lifespan as a photo, it's still it's an avenue, or like it's where a photo goes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's okay.
Obviously it's not. It goes both ways. You can look at it one way or the other, but as long as you use it productively.
Let's say on your professional Instagram, your main one, have you ever uploaded a photo that was taken by your phone?
No. Mainly because I feel like a part of me, you know, you sometimes, you know, if I take a decent photo, maybe I should. But when I take photos on my phone camera, I don't have the intention of putting that on social media.
Yeah.
It's more for like more personal stuff.
Yeah.
Like I take more videos of funny stuff that I see. I think if I wanted to keep things personal, I would just use my phone camera. And then I think I've associated my equipment or what I have with different aspects of what I do. So camera and phone, it's more personal. You know, if I use my camera, that's more just for professional purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's just something. It's just out of habit.
Yeah.
And when I look at my SLR mirrorless camera.
Yeah, there's SLRs.
It's SLR,
Yes,
right?
yeah. Single. Yeah, it's mirrorless. Just
Mirrorless.
Just
Yeah,
say mirrorless.
yeah. Sorry, it's a bit late in the night. I keep forgetting these terms. But yeah, it's I just say like what like. I just automatically think of concepts or whatever, like things that I want to do.
When you have it in your hand.
When I have it in my hand,
Yeah,
and when I
yeah.
see it, I just feel like it's my workhorse. You know,
Okay,
it's
okay.
my camera to work.
So speaking on that, do you think you're more creative if you have like great gear, or do you
that's a
think,
good question.
or like versus bad gear? Do you feel like you're more creative?
I feel
Because
like
it's the same question when like you have a zoom lens or a prime lens, you know. So like, are you more creative with really good gear or really bad gear?
I'm more creative with bad gear, like
Okay.
gear that's specifically
Very
for
limited.
like taking photos or videos.
Yeah.
I'm a lot more creative.
Yeah.
Because I have to think
More.
a lot harder.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't count phone cameras. Like, I'm not going to count phone cameras, but in terms of low budget, like cheap cameras, that will force me to think of, and conceptually, I'll think a lot more extensive than I would with more expensive gear.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I feel like expensive gears kind of made things a lot easier, but then again, because it's made things a lot more convenient, one could argue that you can be a lot more creative as well because you have the ability to do certain things.
Yeah.
That you couldn't usually do in terms of like high speed, low light stuff.
Yeah.
You could be a lot more creative in that area.
Yeah.
But I feel like, in the low budget camera, you're going to be more creative in terms of your composition, your lighting, and stuff like that. And then conceptually, yeah, it's
That's really interesting,
it's
isn't
hard,
it?
Yeah, I don't know, that's hard, man. I think
I don't know, because for me, like every time I use like a more low budget camera, it's like I tend to think more easier concepts. Like,
yes,
Yeah, because you're very limited to the settings and like the capabilities of that camera. So I tend to like, so I can't do this. So I probably shouldn't try this. I should just stick with something much easier.
I think
Just like
I think that's also an interesting thing because I feel like you tone it down a little
Yeah.
bit in terms of your what you really want to capture, like how difficult the shot is to achieve,
yeah,
but you compensate that for a more interesting idea, a more interesting composition. And like, it might be a simple idea, but how you frame, how you position things or whatever, the angle that you want,
yeah,
you think about it a lot more because you don't have a really unique idea to fall back on
that's true. Yeah,
in order to make a really interesting shot.
yeah,
If you guys understand where I'm coming from.
I was just reminded of like the times when I came from like a really good camera and then, as I'm sure we all had to do this, we all like have good cameras now, but then the time when we have to go from that to a cheaper camera, do you ever feel like you're actually like on that Digital Rev TV like that show and like you're a contestant in the Pro Photographer Cheap Camera like challenge?
Yeah.
I feel like if I was given like a really like I guess like a worse camera than what I use now, then it's like, okay, how do I use this to the best of my ability?
Yeah.
And like I feel like it is like a challenge, but it's also something that's like exciting.
Yeah.
It's like a challenge in like a really like a educational and like really fun way.
Yeah. Because if you think
yeah.
about it, it's like we all started with like a
Yeah.
really subpar camera, so it's like
And then the thing is, it's you come back to it from your good camera, your main camera, and then that's where you can bring in your knowledge, your new insights about composition and like different lighting techniques and all that. And I think it's really interesting, and maybe it does. I think it does make you more of a intentional photographer when you use a cheaper camera. Yeah.
Because you gotta find, as Toby said, more simpler things to do, but make those simple things a lot more interesting to compensate.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
Yeah, it can.
Because usually, the more complex the thing that you're shooting, the more interesting the idea is.
Yeah.
And usually that's how you would feel. Because, we don't want to shoot the same, old typical shots that we usually do. But with a low budget camera, you have to limit yourself, but somehow manage to be able to think of a way to compose it to make it interesting. And it's a great challenge within itself, and something that you can learn and carry over to your professional cameras.
Indeed.
So let's say, like, hypothetically, there's a person who has no photography experience, and then they're like, all right, Toby, all right, Jeremy, I'm about to get into photography and I've got this budget. What camera, like, should I buy? And then, because obviously they're trying to get like the best of their budget, right?
Okay, yeah.
How would you advise them to make a decision in like what camera they should buy?
So like, I think for me, I wouldn't tell them a camera straight up. I'd tell them like the meaning behind like the camera. It's like, it's not about the camera. It's more like.
So it's not about the camera.
It's not about the camera. It's about what you intend to shoot with that camera and like how you're gonna shoot it.
Okay.
Because like if let's say you're going on a trip, just take something nice, light, and compact. Or if you actually want to do photography, and like you have concepts, then how far do you want to take that? So don't ball out. I don't know, like, and then sort of advise them on the various types of cameras. But sometimes I might have a bias. Hashtag Team Sony.
Oh.
To be honest, I would go for a secondhand alternative.
Yeah, pre-loved.
You can get 5D Mark. I would recommend getting like a 5D Mark II or something. A really old school camera. It's still full frame, and you can get it for real cheap, under 1,000, I think. And you can start from there and then buy some lenses, and those lenses carry on for a long time. I mean, that's looking in the perspective that you might want to pursue this later on.
Yeah.
But in terms of if you're a beginner and you want to see if you like this, obviously I always resort to just think about your shots when you take some photos on your camera.
Yeah.
I feel like if you can take decent shots on your camera, your phone camera, then you're gonna be able to transition to photography with DSLRs and all that stuff a lot easier.
Yeah.
For some people, it's an incentive, like, to take even better photos once they have that new camera.
Yeah. And I feel like these days a lot of beginners, and like I'm guilty of that too. People don't think about their shots too much, I tell someone that's starting out, just stand there and just look at what you're shooting at for 10-20 seconds, Understand the location, understand the subject. Why are you shooting this shot? Just compose, think about it for a bit, and understand why are you taking this shot? And I think, obviously there's a time and place to be constantly, like, do quick shooting, but over time, you want to start slow first, so you understand and kind of get used to being able to shoot a lot faster. But like any kind of skill, you want to slow down a little bit. You want to take your time. You kind of want to appreciate what you're shooting.
Interesting.
And these days, like, especially with a more interesting concepts, I'd rather take my time and shoot the things that I want to shoot. Because like, there's this argument saying like, you'd rather keep shooting and get like 1,000 shots and then maybe get those few good shots. But for me, like, I don't have time to go through all like 1,000 shots and
Yeah.
find the right one.
Yeah.
I want to have something in my head already, and then maybe a few other shots along the way as I get on location. So I know what I want.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I'm not kind of second guessing myself, and like, you know, it's more. I'm nothing. I don't want anything to be an accident. I want it to be intentional. That's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, everyone has their own kind of shooting style. But like, I think to really learn about photography, I think you need to slow down a little bit and just kind of understand, you know, why you're taking the shot.
Yeah. No, I get you.
Anything before you do anything, just think a little bit, right? Don't rush into it, and then you'll be getting a lot more better shots, you know. But yeah, what do you guys think?
Cool.
No, I completely agree because like when I think when you're shooting, let's say blindly, and you're just going for like quick, small differences in your shots, you're not gonna learn from the differences.
Yeah.
You can learn by luck, but I think if you're more intentional about how you're composing a shot, how you're setting up the shot itself, then that's how you learn quickly and like more efficiently.
Yeah.
I think it's also how you relearn quickly as well, because if you're just literally experimenting, you don't know what you've changed a lot. But once you've become more intentional about it, you've framed it differently in your head,
Yeah.
and then that's when like it kind of just like sticks, and you've learned something new. Like let's say, oh, now I know I need to shoot it on this angle, or maybe like, oh, I need to move something within the frame.
Yeah.
Like if you pinpoint different things in your frame and you move them around, like just even in your head, and you kind of just frame it before you take your next shot, not only are you saving time, but you're saving like your hard drive space, and like it's like more efficient because you're actually learning quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to be one of those shotgun shooters when I started out.
Yeah, from
And,
the hip.
No, not like a shotgun.
Yeah.
Like
Nah.
just the burst shooter.
Yeah.
But there is a time like I would feel like no, actually no. Finish what you're saying. Sorry. About that.
Yeah. I used to be a burst shooter, and like it just took me ages and ages to go through like all the photos, and like they all look the same, and it's just like the tiniest difference. Yeah, I didn't learn like much until like I was like slowed down, and I was just like, I should shoot this way, and like I started learning more on like how to shoot. But yeah, no, I think it's important to really just understand what you're shooting and like what you're shooting with as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just gonna take a break for a sec.
I think you should point the mic at you.
Sorry.
You should point the mic at you.
Yeah, I'm catching a bit of atmosphere.
Not only for the end part, but also for your learning experience.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
That's the moral right here. Moral of the podcast.
So gear does matter.
It
At the same time, it doesn't.
it like you shouldn't focus on the gear. Like it's good to have
What
good gear.
I want to ask. I'll ask later.
Okay.
Ready? Gary?
Alright. Well, almost.
5.
Alright. So one sec.
1.
It's getting hot in here. Fuck. Take off all your clothes
I'll take off my shoes.
for the next podcast.
Ready for spaghetti?
Alright. Yep.
11, 12.
3, 2. Okay. 3, 2, 1, and we're back. All right. Just continuing on from our discussion about gear.
Yeah.
Where did we left off at?
I have a question.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
I have a question. So obviously, like when we shoot a shot, maybe someone asks us about our gear, right?
Yeah.
Let's say the typical question is like, oh, what camera is that? Or like, what lenses do you use? That kind of stuff, yeah? Like, what is your initial reaction from that question?
I just say what camera it is. Like, oh, it's a Sony. And I'm just like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty much it. Like,
I get that.
I'm not like flaunting like it's like, yeah, that's right. I'm a Sony guy. I'm a mirrorless. Like, nah, it's like
Yeah.
it's a Sony.
I'm just like, hey man, I just got A7 III,
Yeah.
and I'm using this lens, that lens.
Are you
whatever.
referring to like a photographer asking you, or like just like a normal person walking up to you? It's like, hey, what do you
A
shoot?
photographer.
Are you assuming that we are defined by our gear? Like what kind of?
Well,
gear
I'm
we
not
use?
sure. I think the question is so general, is so vague that like,
Yeah.
like of course they're asking just about the gear, but I think there is more to that question, right?
Okay. Yeah.
As in
It's
like,
like, what do you shoot with that camera?
No, it's like, it's, I don't know. Maybe it's like, what kind of camera is it? And then it's like maybe like,
is this guy profiling us or something?
yeah, I don't know. I feel like people, some people in the community, right? I'm not saying it's like us, or I'm not naming any names, but like some people are very like they care a lot about like what gear people use.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do
agree.
agree about that. Yeah,
And like, let's say for me, like my example, I think what I'm getting is that like, when someone asks me like what gear I use, like sometimes like I just have, I think that they have another question in mind when they ask that. I think like they don't actually want to know
What it is?
what it is.
Okay.
I feel like yeah, like the interest is. I think that when you talk about your gear and what you have, it's just like asking like what kind of job you have. Yeah.
Right.
So if you have some really expensive gear, they're like, oh, this guy has money. He must be, oh, she, sorry. Can go both ways. Shout out to women and men out there.
What?
No, but, yeah, no.
Okay, so
no,
I get
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I get that. So what you're saying is like it's an indicator, right?
Yeah, it's like asking anybody's any kind of question. There's always kind of ulterior motive. You
Yeah,
know?
that's
like,
what I mean,
it's-
dude.
I
Like-
think like like when I ask questions, it's always kind of gauging what kind of person you are. I think that's natural.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
like it's not to I don't know, like not necessarily in a negative way, it's just curious. Some people are curious.
Okay.
I think we're all curious, to be honest, like we ask so many questions, we're trying to figure something about. We just want to know you.
Yeah.
Like with gear, like if I said I've got the GFX, ooh, you know how much I love that camera, but if you had the GFX, that's some expensive equipment. You're
Yeah,
like, this
yeah.
guy is doing something right. He's like, to get that man, this guy must be like so loaded.
takes it very
He
seriously.
takes it very seriously, or he's so loaded. Like, there's so many people with likers out there
Yeah.
that are just collect it because they got money to do that. There's definitely a any races, like race and stuff like that. Everyone's confined to certain groups. There's there's stereotypes. There's
Yeah.
Fuji
yeah.
definitely has their own kind of stereotypes.
How would you describe Fuji?
Oh God. The general consensus is, I think, more alternative people,
Yeah.
and then Sony is
Sony's for younger audience. I feel.
Sony's for I think some people think Sony are stuck up people.
Really?
I don't know. Do you get a negative stigma with using?
No, I get more like, oh, you're such a modern person.
Yeah, I
Okay.
feel like,
Like
so,
it's-
Sony just feels like it's modern. It's for the digital. It's for like digital production.
Yeah.
Like
Whereas,
those more that are more like up to date. I'm not saying Sony is the one that's like at the front.
Sony's for your travel photographers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's a mirrorless. Everyone who uses
Yeah.
Sony is using an A7
Yeah.
or something, right?
But I feel like Sony, there's something about it. It's just like people. I don't know. It's a bit. I don't know. I get
No,
this,
no, no.
I get
Let's
this
hear
different
it. Let's
vibe.
hear it.
I don't know. I think I don't know how to say this.
What's Sony like on the video side?
Oh, everyone uses Sony for video these days. You know, Sony's killing it. I think people have this thing that Sony's a bit sterile. Not sterile, but it's just a little bit more.
You're sterile, Toby. You're sterile.
It's a bit more clinical, if you know if you know what I mean. It doesn't have.
I don't know what you mean.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah,
it's a
clinical.
bit flat. It doesn't have a flavor.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Or like, it doesn't have substance.
Yes.
I think that's what people feel.
So a lot of people think I use like an A7.
Ah.
Because your images come out really sharp, but it's Canon. But Canon kills it too. You know.
Canon. I think the stereotype of Canon is like
You're basic.
basic.
You're
Basic.
Nikon.
I think.
Photography.
I think it's landscape photographers, right?
Yeah, landscapes.
Yeah, all the landscapes
And like a
is
lot of
really
like
good.
I think a lot of like hardcore fans are Nikon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because Nikon.
Because not gonna lie, like when someone does recommend me, ask for recommendations for a camera, I don't say Nikon ever. I'll be like,
okay.
Canon, because it's an all rounder. You know?
I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of the times when we are recommending brands, we're also making these recommendations based on the stereotypes we know of them and what those stereotypes
and our personal
value to
experiences
us.
with people that use
Exactly.
the cameras.
Isn't that interesting? And it's not even about like the tech specs. It's just about like how we feel about the brands.
Yeah. They're like, oh, you shoot with Sony. I'm like, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, wait, what? Okay, like, and then they're like, oh, what do you shoot with? Canon. I'm like, oh, this guy.
Yeah. No, because
No,
my first camera was a Samsung, dude.
Oh yeah, you did say,
Samsung.
you did say that.
Like-
What about people with Panasonics? Like Lumix.
I think it's just so niche.
If you're a GH5 user, like I think you're just using videographer.
Videographer.
Using-
Videographers use Panasonic.
Yeah.
David.
Yeah,
Shout out to
David.
David.
shout out to David.
He uses Panasonic.
Olympus.
That's. I think Olympus.
Sorry.
Olympus is for the. I think, from what I know, is from the film users,
Oh, okay.
and then is that right?
The old school OMDs.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I always think of the Olympus. The first thing that comes to mind for me is the shape of the camera. It's
Yeah.
that like almost octagonal
yeah.
shape.
Yeah.
The vintage look.
Yeah.
I would put Olympus and Fuji similar.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Similar-
They do have like a similar aesthetic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like good bodies.
Yeah.
Like
the all metal.
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Silver
I-
and black.
I did start out with an Olympus,
Yeah.
but Fuji kills it, man.
You like Fuji?
I like Fuji way more.
But you use a Sony.
Huh? Dude, to be honest, like you put a camera in my hand, I don't really care what it is.
Yeah.
What you got over there?
Huh? I have the JVC Pro HD,
JVC.
which I rented for a gig, but you know, it's a bit old.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, there's not much manual features on this camera,
Oh.
so
Pretty auto.
yeah. But it's like, given the project, you know, you do what you could, and within your budget. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
don't
no,
like. I'm not using fancy technology. Yeah, I'm not really using any fancy technology. So you gotta do whatever gets the job done.
I feel like that's a lot of us, even with photography. Like
Yeah.
what we use day to day, like it gets the job done no matter what
Yeah.
you have. Like
Yeah.
I think a decent photographer can find a way to use it.
Yeah. So speaking on like decent photographer versus like bad gear, do you feel like taking a photo with bad gear, you can fix that to look professional through editing?
To an extent, some things can only be processed within the raw file,
Yeah.
and that is predicated on the sensor of the camera, correct?
Yeah.
So obviously there are some aesthetic or like optical changes that
Yeah.
can only be made through the lens or the camera sensor.
Yeah.
But I think everything else, like color, like you can change that. You can change some textures, even like there's a lot you can change in
Yeah.
post production.
Yeah. Like advancements in post production software has, you know, done, you know, amazing things, remarkable things. You know, you can make a shit photo into like a pretty decent photo. these
Yeah,
days.
I think you can do that based on the photo, but there's the obvious stuff like some cameras have a certain amount of megapixels, and so you're not gonna be able to make a billboard poster out of your phone camera. Actually, you probably could. That's probably every iPhone feel for.
But if I feel
My
like
bad.
if you're actually shooting for billboards, you would have had the money
The
to
budget,
get
yeah.
a budget to get a good camera to begin
Or at
with.
least rent
anyway.
one.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's some like
and
hard commercial
and
stuff.
even with like, let's say we're talking about video as well, you can't just like get a frame. You can't just bump up the frame rate out of nowhere in post production.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're stuck with what the capabilities of the camera itself.
Yeah.
All right. So final question: would you prefer to have a good camera with really bad editing software, or like a
What's a bad editing software?
like I don't know, just like a really like with computers and like even this is including like the computer
Oh,
used to edit. So
shit.
it's like
Yeah.
slow.
That's
it's
a-
really bad.
It's an easy question to answer.
Or would you prefer like a bad subpar camera with like really good?
What's a subpar
Editing.
camera?
I don't know, like the early days, not film, but like the early day digital cameras.
What lens am I using? I think a lot of it comes
let's
down
say it's a
to-
compact camera, single lens
I'd use the cheap camera.
with the editing software.
Yeah.
I would use the expensive camera.
Which yeah,
Yeah.
but you're a pretty patient guy, so like I think editing is like no brainer for you.
No, but the thing is, like, sometimes you just don't need to edit too much.
Okay, yeah.
I rather get to be honest, like, it's always getting the shot right first,
Yeah.
and then having a good camera to be able to achieve that a lot more easily is nice to have.
Yeah. Fair
And
enough.
like, if I can just tweak the highlights and shadows and stuff like that just a little bit,
Yeah.
as long as it has that, I'm pretty sure even the shittiest Instagram has those
Yeah,
features.
yeah,
for
yeah,
fuck's sake.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
true.
yeah. It's like that. That's all I need, to be honest. Like I can appreciate having the more advanced stuff, but I'm happy with shooting right to begin with first.
That's interesting. I have the opposite answer because I feel like the way I take photography is more, I think, for art.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, well, there's a certain aesthetic with older equipment, with older cameras, and
Yeah.
I can make that work to my advantage with the editing software, and like make it at least maybe like a little bit more fitting with the style of the camera.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool.
How about you, Toby?
Surprisingly enough, I actually don't think about that stuff. I'm because like for me,
Don't dodge your own question.
I'm not dodging my question, but I never I literally just asked a question. I never actually had an answer in my mind because
Yeah.
I've always been the type to just utilize whatever I have with me, no matter what it is.
If you had to pick one.
If I had to pick one, it'd probably be the good camera.
Mm.
Yeah, good camera, bad editing software. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's like getting the satisfaction of actually taking a nice photo, rather than like being at home and editing it to be nice.
Yeah.
Because like post processing was still available, back in old school film days.
Yeah.
But it was more about taking the shot right first. And, still to this day, there's a lot of really nice photos that are timeless.
Yeah.
And, it goes to show, it's not all about a lot of, intense editing to achieve a really good shot.
Yeah.
Although I feel like in a lot of ways these days, your editing style will have an effect on how people see your work and stuff like that.
Yeah, of course.
And it has a big... So these days, I think it's like 50-50 shooting and editing.
Yeah, because for some photographers, photography or their end product is more a photo manipulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's with the introduction to, I guess, like modern editing software, like photography is beyond photography.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I feel like these days, like, you need to master your editing skills as a photographer, otherwise you're going to be behind
Yeah,
really
for
bad.
sure.
Yeah.
So not just shooting, but just editing as well.
For sure.
Yeah. But I feel like you can get away with being a really good editor and subpar shooter.
We should
days.
make that into like a video someday. Like
Yeah, sounds
take
good.
a shit camera and then like only use like GIMP.
We'll take the worst shots, and then with
Try
Photoshop,
to-
like make it really look nice.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah,
Let's do
I'm
that.
down. I'm always
I'm down.
down to do
I'm
that.
down.
Let's
Yeah.
do that.
What do you mean? Like I do that all the time.
Oi.
No. But
That's funny.
yeah. But I love editing. Like
Yeah, I think sitting down to take the time to edit is
Yeah.
it's a very like peaceful and like
Therapeutic.
yeah.
yeah, just like like I really like contouring faces. Like that's really fun. I don't know. A lot of people don't enjoy it. I don't because it's like it takes a lot of time.
Yeah, yeah.
But for me, it's like I treat my photos like paintings. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
Oh yeah, like sometimes like I just like I envision the shot, but looking more like a watercolor painting,
Okay, yeah.
and I kind of want to push that effect on a photo and like like
I feel that, dude. I
yeah
feel
like
that. That's me too.
yeah like it's like that like editing has like post processing today has allowed me to do that,
Yeah.
a lot more easier, but but to the bare bones, it's always getting the shot right first for me.
So
Yeah.
gear
Yeah.
matters.
The gear matters.
That's the conclusion.
Yeah, the gear. Well, depends on where you, depends on where you are at with this. It's always relative. Like there's no, definite. There's no one fits.
There are no
for all.
absolutes.
Yeah, there's no absolute. There's no cookie cutter.
Mm.
Program for you to be like, all right, you got to get this camera at this level, this camera at that level. Different cameras suit for different needs.
Yep.
You got to find what's best for you, and that's always a cop out answer, but it's actually
It's the truth.
It's the truth.
It's the truth.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
life for you.
That's life. Should we wrap it up?
Yeah.
That was good.
So yeah, thanks again, guys, for tuning in for episode 3 of Klickback. We do sound a bit tired because it's been quite a busy day for
It's like
each of us.
11:30 p.m.
Already.
Yeah,
I mean, we're still not even sure when we're gonna release this.
Yeah.
But
it'll
just enjoy it and
Yeah,
hope you guys like this mellow Klickback.
let us know what you think. Like, does gear matter to you, and like in what context and stuff like that. We'd really be interested to know what you guys think. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. And Tommy, you got any final words?
No. Thanks a lot for listening, and stick around for the next episode.
All right.
Peace.
Peace.